Over 70% of Nigeria's population is on drugs. My guest on the program says this is normal in poor countries, but actions need to be taken now or we will have a country of addicts in the next few years. Nigeria's drug of choice is marijuana. And we have the marijuana conversation during the interview because that is one area my guest has had to be at loggerheads with other government officials. But we do take the time in our feature story to look at this growing epidemic, and we speak to dealers and users in the FCT. That's coming up. And as usual, we have our Abuja wrap. This is Dateline Abuja. Hello and welcome to Dateline Abuja. I am Kayla Megwa. We kick off the show this week with a look at the major stories making the rounds from Nigeria's seat of power.
President Muhammadu Buhari has approved the composition of the federal government's team to engage with Twitter. The team includes 6 ministers as well as other relevant government agencies. The Minister of Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, heads the team. Meanwhile, the ECOWAS Court of Justice sitting in Abuja has restrained the federal government from imposing sanctions or harassing, intimidating, arresting or prosecuting Twitter. The court gave the restraining order after hearing arguments from parties in a suit filed by the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project and 176 concerned Nigerians. In the meantime, the federal government is studying judgment of the ECOWAS Court to decide on the next line of action. Addressing State House correspondents after this week's Federal Executive Council meeting, the Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, Mr. Femi Adesina, adds that President Buhari has nothing to do with the ongoing attempt by the House of Representatives to amend the Nigerian Press Council Act and the National Broadcasting Commission Act.
The Attorney General of the Federation is going to study that report and then he will advise government on the way forward. The committees set up by the President to engage with Twitter is actually holding a meeting about now, but it will hold a meeting this afternoon towards engaging with Twitter.
The Minister of Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, is accusing microblogging site Twitter of funding the EndSARS protest in Nigeria last year. He made the allegation in his presentation before members of the House of Representatives ad hoc committee on the suspension of Twitter.
The same Twitter played a very unsavory role by making available its platform to retweet, not just retweet the messages of the EndSARS protesters, but raising funds for the EndSARS protesters before it was hijacked by hoodlums. Jack Dorsey crowdfunded the activities of EndSARS. That's why we believe that Twitter's mission in Nigeria is suspect.
President Muhammadu Buhari has inaugurated the National Steering Committee of the National Poverty Reduction with Growth Strategy, chaired by the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo. In his remarks at the event, the President reiterated his commitment to lifting 100 million Nigerians out of poverty in 10 years with a well-researched framework for implementation and funding.
As members of the National Steering Committee, your responsibilities are to A. Anchor collaborative efforts, B. Provide oversight for the implementation of the strategy. If India can lift 271 million people out of poverty between 2006 and 2016, Nigeria can surely lift 100 million out of poverty in 10 years. The National Poverty Reduction with Growth Strategy has thus proposed the establishment of a private equity fund, the Nigeria Investment and Growth Fund, to lead our resource mobilization drive and also manage the resources in a sustainable manner.
President Buhari has tasked the National Space Research and Development Agency to effectively utilize the satellite facilities at its disposal towards resolving the critical issues confronting Nigeria, particularly the areas of security, improved communication and digital penetration, as well as agriculture. He gave the charge at a council meeting of the National Space Research and Development Agency of the agency.
Being the recipient of very strong government support, I also must ask you, with the mandate of working with other agencies and components of government, on how you could best utilize the tools at your disposal in resolving some of those critical issues that confront us as a country. Issues regarding security, improved communication, and digital penetration, and importantly, agriculture.
President Muhammadu Buhari met with the national executive and leaders of the Ijaw Nation Congress and promised to expedite action on restructuring as soon as the National Assembly concludes the relevant processes as it relates to reviewing the Constitution. He also commended the leadership of the Congress led by Professor Benjamin Okaba. Also, the president met with the National Caretaker Committee of the All Progressives Congress. The committee, led by Governor Mai Malabuni of Yobe State, presented a report on the activities of the party to the president. In attendance were the Vice President, Professor Yemi Oshinbajo, Deputy Senate President, Senator Omo Agege, governors and members of the Caretaker Committee. The president also met with the President of the Senate, Senator Ahmed Lawan, behind closed doors. After the meeting, Senator Lawan explains the rationale for the National Assembly's decision to approve the president's latest request for loan.
We will not be frivolous and we will not take it lightly to just approve any loan. And our options are really very limited as a country. First, we don't have the necessary revenues. Nigeria is poor. We shouldn't deceive ourselves. Nigeria is not rich. Given the circumstances we live in, given the challenges we have, our resources are so low, our revenues are so low. You cannot, in my view and judgment, tax Nigerians further for you to raise the money for infrastructure development. Other countries do that, but we have serious situation across the country. So the only option left is for us to borrow responsibly, utilize prudently and economically, that Nigerian economy will benefit from the implementation of such infrastructure development.
The Vice President, Professor Yemi Oshinbajo, is confident that Nigeria will remain united as a strong nation to the frustration of those waiting to see the country broken into pieces. He made the remark at the maiden edition of the All Progressives Congress Progressives Youth Conference.
Those who advocate the breaking up of the country are terribly wrong. Our size is crucial for geopolitical and economic relevance. All of those waiting on the sidelines, hoping that this big country called Nigeria will break up into bits.
A high court in the Federal Capital Territory has sentenced the former chairman of the House of Representatives at a committee on petroleum subsidy, Mr. Farouk Lawan, to 7 years in prison. The presiding judge, Justice Angela Otaluka, noted that the evidence listed and submitted before the court by the prosecution counsel remained unshaken during the trial, which lasted for over 8 years.
Welcome back. Let's get to it. Drug use is an unfortunate coping mechanism, and the wicked among us take advantage of this weakness to make profits. This week, we went to Kefi, just 48 kilometers from the nation's capital, and we were able to talk to both dealers and users of drugs. The drug use in Abuja is one of the lowest in the country at just 10%, but our neighboring states tell a different story.
This is an effort to mobilize young people in the nation's capital to join the campaign to stop the use of illicit drugs. The use of illicit drugs is a growing trend in the nation's capital. According to a report from the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime on drug use in Nigeria, which was documented in 2018, the prevalence of drug abuse in the FCT is 10%, one of the lowest in the country. But the figure is worsened by the prevalence rate in neighboring states, including Niger, Nasarawa, and Kwara. The prevalence rate in the north-central region, where the FCT is located, is 30%. Cannabis, cough syrups containing codeine or dextromethorphan, and pharmaceutical opioids, that is, tramadol and morphine, are the three groups of substances with high prevalence in the nation's capital. According to the UNODC report, 1 in 7 persons aged 15 to 64 years in Nigeria had used a drug other than tobacco and alcohol as at 2018. The national prevalence rate in 2018 was estimated at 14.4%, translating to 14.3 million people who had used a psychoactive substance in the past year for non-medical purposes. The dominant age bracket among the drug users are those aged 25 to 39 years. The report further states that an estimated 10.8% used cannabis in 2018. An estimated 4.7% of the population, that is 4.6 million people, use opioids such as tramadol, codeine, or morphine for non-medical purposes. The non-medical use of cough syrups containing codeine and dextromethorphan is estimated at 2.4%.
We are estimating that the drug use is going to be growing faster in West Africa than in any other region of the world. We estimate actually that by 2030, the overall drug use in Africa is going to have increased by 40%. That's only 8 years from now, essentially. In terms of the drugs that are consumed in Nigeria, of course we have the transiting drugs, cocaine from Latin America, and Nigerian organized criminal networks play a very significant role in the international cocaine trade by now. We also have heroin coming from West Asia. The biggest use that we can establish presently, beyond the use of cannabis, of course, which is the #1 drug of choice, is the use of pharmaceutical opioids for non-medical purposes. So essentially tramadol, codeine, and similar pharmaceutical psychotropic substances that are being used for non-medical reasons. There's about 7 million users in total presently in Nigeria. Again, tendency growing.
Public smoking is discouraged in the nation's capital, and this could have compelled several young men and women to resort to taking other substances, or better still, they move to neighboring states. This joint in Kefi, Nasarawa State, is about 48 kilometers to the nation's capital. Meet Ngozi Pius. She is known for her dealership on hard drugs in Kefi. Right by her gate is a hole where youths who come to patronize her beckon for whatever brand of drugs they want.
Cannabis.
Don't you know that it has effects on the youths and every other person that takes it?
I don't know. People that are bringing it, we call them on phone now. I say small, at times we feel make like 5,000, 10,000.
Have you tested it before? How long have you?
No.
You don't test it, but you allow others to buy.
How long have you been selling this?
It don't take.
How many years?
It don't reach about 3 to 4 years or 5 years.
Her backyard also serves as a hideout for hard drug users. One of the youths who was bold enough to speak on camera tells us why he takes the drugs.
Once if my promotion is high, I take 10 a day. Now if my promotion is not higher, I only take 5. Then if I want to do with other people, I take 2.
Motor parks in the city in particular are in the habit of daily consumption and purchase of these serious illicit drugs as if you are just buying ordinary cigarette.
For the FCT administration, the rising number of drug abusers is responsible for the rate of crime in the city, and the minister is seeking for the cooperation of residents to tackle the menace.
My guest is in the news almost every day. He's the chairman, National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, General Buba Marwa. Is Nigeria a drug destination or drug route? Is the NDLEA arresting the actual drug kingpins or just foot soldiers? What happens after the arrest and parade of these traffickers? Many cultures, local and foreign, promote the use of marijuana. Even some government officials are clamoring for its legalization, citing economic benefits. Is he fighting a losing war? I'll tell you this, though. He has a mandate, and he is sticking to the plan. General Mara, welcome to Dateline Abuja.
Thank you.
You've had quite a busy day, and it is International Day against drug abuse and illicit trafficking. Talk to us a bit about the significance of this day. Why is this so important to us as a country?
As you know, the drug scourge is international. So this is a UN day. It's not only Nigeria, actually. It's global. This is one day when nations and societies are galvanized into recognition of this scourge in the world and steps to take it forward and out. That's really the long and short of it. On this day, all countries move up, address the drug scourge, look for solutions, pass it out with a view to mitigating or eliminating it. That's what it is. And in Nigeria, it's even more significant because from the last survey in 2018, 14.3 million Nigerians, that is almost 3 times the global average, are doing drugs. Very sad. It's moving. We have to take steps because it's destroying families, destroying our youth, our communities, and the country. Very urgent.
You know, many years ago, I attended an event where you were speaking, and we had people from the international community at that event. And of course, at the time, that was the first time I was hearing about the fact that the drive, you know, when you are handling drug use and drug abuse, is to treat drug users as patients, not as criminals. Is that something that we still hold on to in Nigeria?
It's actually a disease. There are two angles to it. First, the drug supply reduction, where we are the lead agency to enforce the laws against drugs, its cultivation, its manufacture, sale, and so on and so forth. But the other angle that must balance the supply reduction is the demand reduction. And one of the ways to deal with demand reduction is to treat the consumers actually as people who need help. For the most part, you find that they feel stigmatized or ashamed to look for treatment. That shouldn't be the case. So we tend not to criminalize users, pure users at a certain quantum. Otherwise, you know, everybody will go out now and start looking for what to smoke. The main thing is to treat them.
So walk me through how that works. If we find drugs in someone, and those drugs are deemed to be for personal use, not for sale. So what do you do to the person if you discover drugs on an individual? What happens? What does the NDLEA do next?
It's a thin line.
Okay.
It's a thin line, and our officials have to determine whether it is for use, and the law till today also punishes users. We have to be very, very clear.
Okay, so back
we don't want to say don't criminalize it, you know, flat. In Nigeria, it is still the law.
So the law still treats users as criminals, but there's the option of treatment.
Yes, but it depends, because when you say you are a user and I find you with 1 kilogram of cocaine, that's beyond that.
If you find someone with a stick of cannabis,
that will probably lead to counseling at that point. But we have other things that we look at. Were you caught before with cannabis? Is this your first offense? And is it just 1 stick? We will go and make sure that is the case. And then the decision will be taken whether all you need is counseling, and we have counseling centers in all our commands, or whether you need to be prosecuted. It's a judgment call, depends on when, where, and how they found it.
So let's talk about drug use in Nigeria. Are we a destination country? Do we have more users here? Or are we more of a trafficking country?
A long time ago, we used to be more a traffic country, not anymore. Now we are mainly a consumer. Mainly of the 14.3 million, 10.6 million use cannabis, which is mostly grown here. We import, that is to say, Nigerians, those who are criminals, import still some from Canada, some from Ghana, some from the US, skunk, Arizona, and all these others. But for the most part, it's grown here in Nigeria, and 77% of drug users in Nigeria concentrate on cannabis.
So 77% are cannabis users.
Yes.
So what other drug comes next after cannabis when it comes to use in Nigeria?
Okay, cocaine. Well, next in order, tramadol, then codeine, then cocaine, then heroin, then methamphetamine, in that order. And then you have the new psychoactive substances, all kinds of stuff which you don't buy. These are droppings, toilets, gutters, and stuff. It's horrible, but they are doing it.
We're looking at a symptom. What's the disease? Why are many Nigerians using drugs?
From statistics and surveys, the tendency in impoverished societies where there's poverty, widespread poverty, you find they turn to drugs. This is not just Nigeria, to sort of assuage themselves and feel good temporarily.
So if we address poverty, would we be addressing the drug situation?
Which the president is doing. That's the 100 million Nigerians that is trying to get out of poverty over the next 10 years. In the last 2 years, 20 million Nigerians have been lifted out. So the president has a lot of political will to deal with this problem, and poverty is one of it. But there are other, even violence. Those who engage in criminalities, they also use drugs. They turn to drugs because they need to be chemically enhanced, to become fearless, prone to violence, tireless, and more vicious. Otherwise, how would a normal person go after 200 or 300, 400 school children, arrest them, throw them in the bush, no food, and killing some of them because out of his mind? Those are issues of frustration, lack of education. There are a number of things, but poverty actually ranks very high in the root causes. War against drug abuse. There's no joke here.
Well, you do have your work cut out for you. It's going to be a very eventful time, watching you get this job done. Thank you so much for being with us on Dateline, and good luck.
Thank you.
I get it. Drug use, especially among young people, is a product of so many issues, but there are so many other coping mechanisms that do not have to cost you your life or get you incarcerated. And if you think being a mule is lucrative because you see these criminals living large, you're only getting half of the story. All is not as it seems. I promise you, there are other ways to relieve stress. You see that release you're looking for? You can get it from exercise and just living healthy. I know I sound boring right now, but honestly, if you will just flush down that drug and start to walk or jog or run, you'll be surprised at how your body will react. Try it. That's our show this week. Remember to let us know the happenings in your neighborhood using the social media handles showing right now on your screen. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Kayla Megwa. See you next time.